All right, so I'm going to try and address a really difficult discussion today in just a moment or two, make it real short and quick, hopefully, but get you a good answer on it also. The question I want to address today is what kind of role does the president play in affecting our economy? I remember when I was younger, I used to think, and I mean younger, like high school, early years of college, I used to think the president played a really big role on the economy, that it's the leader of the country. How could they not? And then as I started to learn a little bit about a little bit about the Constitution and how our government is actually set up, I began realizing that really the president shouldn't have as much power as we think he does, and it's Congress that makes a lot of the laws. So it really boils down to what does Congress say and decide, right? But over the last few years, roughly, last probably 10 years, what I've really realized is the president does have a big impact on it. And there was a recent discussion on Facebook that I saw where someone was saying, you realize the president can't affect oil prices. And the truth is, the president shouldn't be able to affect oil prices, but the president can. And they do it in a multitude of different ways. The most constitutional way that they do it is by proposing policies and saying, hey, look, this is what my agenda is. This is what I'd like to see Congress do. And then let Congress act and let Congress do what they do. And then Congress can pass the bill to the president, and the president can decide whether or not to sign the bill. Well, this does directly affect our economy. Now, it may not always be his work as much as Congress's work, and what bills he chooses to sign and what bills he chooses to veto do affect our economy. There's another way that a president can affect our economy in even greater ways, and that's through executive orders. So as the president issues executive orders, this can directly impact certain sectors of our economy, or even the economy as a whole. For example, in terms of oil costs, our president has directly impacted oil cost prices by shutting down some of our ability to produce and deliver oil through pipelines. Now, this is distinctly going to have an impact. Whether you think it's a good or bad one is irrelevant. I'm not going to get into the moral arguments for or against this, but it's going to distinctly have an impact on the economy and the price of gas and the price of oil. So, because if we have less of it that we can produce and distribute, then we're going to have to buy more of it from other people, and the supply is going to be lower. So we have to act, and we have to realize that yes, our president can make a big impact on these prices. Now, really, we're running into a big problem in that our president has recently taken oil from the strategic oil reserves. Now, the impact on it, last time he did it was about 3 cents a gallon, so we'll see if it happens again. He says he's going to pull 1 million barrels of oil out per day for the next 6 months, right before the election. Now, is this going to make a big impact? Well, theoretically it will. It'll increase supply, which will hopefully drive price down a little bit, because as supply goes up, price goes down. Really, where I think it becomes worrisome is this isn't the purpose of the Strategic Oil Reserve. The Strategic Oil Reserve is supposed to be there for our military, so that if we get into any kind of conflicts, we can at least get fighter jets in the air, get aircraft carriers and destroyers going to where they need to defend themselves, or transport tanks, and this can create a major problem if we're taking a third of that strategic oil reserve, because then what happens is if we get into a conflict, and this Ukraine thing does blow up even more, probably the wrong use of terms there in the word blow up, but if the Ukraine situation gets worse and we end up in a conflict with Russia's a major oil producer, they're going to drive the prices of oil up by doing that, and that's going to hurt us because now we don't have the strategic reserve there for our military. So at the end of the day, the president can play a really big role in our economy, specifically certain sectors like oil prices and things like that. We need to make a really, really wise decision when we vote based on a couple things. We need to really think about how we vote for our presidents and our congressmen in terms of what's not just good for today, but good for the long term. Because what we have to figure out how to do is how to balance the ecological concerns with using oil with the economical concerns of not using the oil we have. And at this point in time, we've yet to figure out how to balance those things. And until we do, oil is going to become and remain more and more volatile. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit and in regards to how President Biden's policies can affect the cost of oil, and hopefully in the near future we can figure this out as a country and move forward and have good oil policies.